Hi, EPUD customers. This is Kyle Roadman, General Manager of your publicly owned utility. I hope you're all doing well. You can see, by the look of things out here, it's prime summer month now. This is mid-June. And so it may feel a little strange for me to give an update on the January ice storm, but I can assure you we are still actively working on all the after effects from that major event that we went through. And so I have updates on a couple of fronts. The first one is on the financial side of things. So our staff has been actively engaging with FEMA now for a couple of months on requesting reimbursement. We got the federal disaster declaration, I believe, back in April, and ever since then we've been compiling all of our records, making sure all of our reporting is in the right place. And now we're working hand in hand with FEMA representatives to get that reimbursement request submitted in the right way. This month we actually have a big meeting here on site at our headquarters. We'll have FEMA representatives going through, listening to everything that happened, talking about what we need to do to make sure that we can maximize the reimbursement process. Our tally for the storm cost right now is up to about $12 million. So obviously this is a big number for us and a big number for you as customers. And my pledge to you from our staff is that we will do everything we can to maximize the reimbursement that is available to us so that we're not having to pass on a big portion of that cost. I've said before, I don't think this will have a significant impact on rates long term. I still think that's true. We went into this storm in a very, very sound financial position with a lot of cash on hand. That's why we've been able to weather it the way that we have. And assuming we can see this FEMA process through, I think we're going to be looking pretty good on the other end of this thing. The second update I wanted to provide has to do with a report that our staff produced and presented to the board of directors last month. We're calling this the January 2024 Ice Storm Post-Event Analysis. And hopefully there's a link nearby when you're watching this video. You can click and actually read this. It's 20 some odd pages of a fair amount of detail. I guess what I would encourage is at least read the first few summary pages, because I think it does a really good job of describing what exactly happened during the ice storm. What was the weather impact? Why did some of our facilities come down, poles and wires, and what can we do in the future to try to prevent the same impact from happening? We can't prevent weather like that. We can't prevent extreme weather, whether it's in the winter or the summer, but we can certainly learn from what happened and try to prevent the damage in the future. And I think there's some really good ideas in here about how we're going to do that. It involves a combination of things, from moving lines from overhead to underground. We think that makes a lot of sense where there's vegetation that we can't get to trim, things that are outside of our right-of-way. We think undergrounding is a great solution there, and we're going to keep pushing that even more than we have in the past. We also think overhead service, though, continues to have a really important role to play as a cost-effective solution. We found in this storm that where we had newly built overhead service, so stronger poles, thicker wire, that stuff actually held up really well. We didn't have a lot of trouble with newer construction within the last, say, 10, 15 years. Where things really got dicey was when we had older construction standards, things from when we originally took over 40 years ago. So we've been in a process of upgrading all of that, and we're to continue to do that overhead construction to bring things up to a higher standard. And we know where those areas are that didn't perform well, and they could use some new construction. So we're going to keep pushing that. But it's that combination of moving things underground, but also using overhead service and building to a higher standard where we can, that we think kind of threads the needle between more resilient system and also not blowing the budget to the point where we have to raise rates exponentially on customers. So we're going to try to get that balance right. A third issue that I'll mention here, and that you'll see really detailed in the report, is it has to do with third parties that attach to our poles. So you may notice when you look at our pole lines and our wire that spans across them, the electric service is up at the very top. So you look at, there's typically 3 wires that run across the top of our poles. Down below, toward the middle of the pole, you have other attachments, and these are the communications folks, the phone, internet, cable service that actually runs across our poles as well. And what we found was that in many cases, those that were attaching in that part of our pole line didn't do it to the standard that we require. And so you think about the load of the ice with a couple inches of ice on every single wire that's attached to the pole. You know, it's one thing when it's just our lines up at the top and we've properly constructed it and we have support the way it's supposed to be. It's something else entirely when you have 5 or 6 lines down beneath that have not been properly supported, that don't have the proper guy wires and anchors that are needed. In many cases, that extra weight was enough to pull down our poles and cause a lot of carnage. And so in addition to all the capital work I just described, moving lines underground, reconductoring and rebuilding overhead services, we're also going to have a much more robust program when it comes to those that attach to our poles, making sure that there's pre-approval, post-approval, and that we're able to hold them to the standards that they're supposed to be using. So those are kind of the 3 big takeaways that we came up with for root causes in here, and they're very localized. So in some cases you've got vegetation that could come down, get into wires. That's a great candidate, that location, for undergrounding. In other places, we've got overhead service that can do very well if we just build it to the modern standards that are necessary. And we're going to continue to use that overhead rebuild approach. And then we've got the communications attachments that need to be dealt with and make sure that they're attaching in a way that's not compromising the integrity of our system. We're going to put a lot of resources into those 3 areas in the months and years ahead. There is good money available as well from the federal government to help with some of these things, and so in addition to the reimbursement, we'll be seeking additional federal grant funding to help to carry out some of these projects across our system. So look for more of that in the future here, but that's where we're at with the ice storm. I think we'll provide updates as we go forward. The FEMA reimbursement process is likely to take the rest of this year, if not a little bit longer. This is a big number for us, $12 million. That's even a big number for FEMA. And so it's going to be an effort to get through this, but I think you can have faith that we're on it. And I have a lot of optimism that we'll be able to significantly limit the financial damage that our customers are subject to. So please continue to reach out, read this report if you have time. I'm always available to speak to you or to answer your questions. Thank you for being great customers. Thank you for your patience during a year like no other. And please know that we're down here working hard on your behalf. Thanks.